It's 9 o'clock. Some people will probably start rolling in. But I figured let's start rolling. If people come in, that's fine. But let's make sure that we use the best of our time with this. So I'll kind of facilitate everything. I have a list of questions that I compiled from everybody that submitted them, and we'll run those through Mark. And then if you guys have any ancillary questions and you want to talk, we'll unmute you. But right now, for the sake of recording it all, so everybody can rewatch this and get the most out of it, we kind of mute people as we go. So before we get going, just a few words. So Mark and I became friends a couple years ago. We met. He came up to a presentation at Ramphone Training Systems when I was working there. He invited me to present down at his place. And when I went down there, there's something that I really want to note, because I've been all over the country presenting. I've been all over the country going in and out of gyms probably for most of my adult life. And I have never walked into a space and felt more welcome than I did when I walked into Mark Fisher Fitness.
Thank you, brother.
Absolutely. I think that there's something enormous to be said for that. So that's Mark, kind of speaks for himself. I'll let you do any kind of introduction you want to do. And we just have some questions we're going to go through, and this is very informal. I'll probably say fuck at least 7 to 10 times throughout the next.
Okay.
So everybody just kind of be yourself, relax, ask your questions. If you have anything ancillary, like I said, we'll get to that. So Mark, anything you want to lead in with?
No, I'm good, man. I'll probably say fuck a lot too, so that's cool.
Good. I'm also drinking a beer, so everybody relax.
All right on.
So anyway, so the first question actually comes from Mr. Wesley Showalter, who hails from Chicago, Illinois. So he wants to know, how do you deal with new clients that initially have a low self-efficacy? What is your approach?
Yeah, I think in our, I honestly, we were talking about it just 2 minutes ago. I really think so much of it's positive regard, right? Like on the one hand, just seeing the best of them and being so comfortable with like whatever the reactions are, because, particularly when you're working with people that, aren't sure they can do. Like ruthlessly making it safe for them. And I think like that's sort of the foundational piece. I think from there, it's a matter of time, of just like slowly offering them, I think, like the correct amount of autonomy. And that's something I've been thinking a lot about recently too, because I know you're also an SDT fan, Todd. You have sort of this relatedness component, which like in the beginning, before you know someone, ideally, again, you're giving that unconditional positive regard. So, you're sort of having ideally the beginnings of a connection. The competence, particularly sort of like, admittedly slowly, but making some improvements. And honestly, faster as we know than when you become a more advanced trainee.
Sure.
So I think the challenge, as we all know, is I think giving them, the right level of challenge that appropriately challenges their competence, right? So the classic, if you've ever read the book Flow by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, syllables, fucking vowels, fucking consonants.
Yeah.
You want to match the skill.
This is weird.
Mark, can you hear us? Can you hear us, Mark?
I can hear you guys. Am I breaking up?
Yeah,
a little bit.
Breaking up.
Let me see if...
Fucking New York City, man.
Fucking New York. I know. Our internet sucks in New York.
There's no connection. Biggest city.
I know. Let me... can I try another wireless network real quick? Will that fuck up our life?
No, we're good.
Okay. Let me go try. I'm going to go bring you guys into another room. So...
Guys, hang tight for just a second. We're going to get this straightened out. In the meantime, Chris is going to dance for everybody. Chris, come on in.
Hello.
There you go.
All right.
Good.
Hi again.
Hi.
Right. Sorry about that.
No worries, man. You're good.
Great. Where were we at?
So you were talking about, STT and the certain level of confidence people need to have before you can kind of release them into autonomy.
Yeah. I think that, the point that I was going to make about that. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Yep. Okay, great. The point that I was going to make about the autonomy piece that I've been thinking a lot about is the amount of autonomy is very different, I think, based on the person and their personal preferences and the task and a lot of things. And honestly, like I still haven't, it's on my list for this year. I haven't yet read, I think Why We Do What We Do. Is that the book?
Yeah, by Edward Deci. Yeah.
So and I'm buddies with Coach Steve, but by no means am I like an expert on SDT. My sort of, it's not a critique of it, but it's the most, I think, accurate use of that allows for the fact that there's a wide variety of the autonomy that people crave. And I think, there's some people, if you're like an entrepreneur type, like you might be like real extreme, like you need to do whatever the fuck you want to do when you want to do it. Whereas sometimes you're working with a client and they need a very small box. Like for them, it's like, would you like to do great? That looked really great. Do you want to do 135 for 6 or 135 for 8? Or do you want to 145 for 6 or go up 10 pounds? What feels best to you? Yeah. Right. And I think there's something to be said for the art of giving people the appropriate box of autonomy, because it's the same thing plays out. If they don't have enough freedom, even if you're giving them choice, they could start to get kind of surly. But also if you give them too much freedom, hilarious, the ninja story, one of our coaches, Jeff, who's like the best, right? Like Mr. Wonderful, we call him that for a reason, right? And Mr. Wonderful was like doing it like our usual like MFF, like shtick, man, like, man, I'm like, what can I do for you today to like one of our ninjas we love? It's like, how am I going to make you feel powerful today? Like, what can I really do for you today? And she's like, how about you fucking tell me what to do? How about I'm fucking paying you? But like in like a really like hilarious, like, but like serious, but cool, like friendly way. Like she was like, this is how I want you to take care of me today. And I think that's, been an interesting lesson for me lately as I try to unpack the SDT stuff and see how I can sort of meet different people where they're at. So
I think that's really interesting because it's something, if I can kind of paraphrase what you just said, is that it almost exists on a spectrum for you, right? So between autonomy and competence and relatedness, somewhere in there is where people are going to fall. And that's kind of where you got to find where they're at.
Yeah. And it's like, like I said, I'm not like as into that literature where I feel like super proficient in it, but I know that like SDT, when it's talked about often in a business setting, right? If you read Daniel Pink's work, who I'm a huge fan of, but if you read Drive, which is like, listen, must read book. It's amazing. Like I'm like gaga for that guy. I would like, his best. Fucking, he wants to fuck me. Okay, got it, bro. I was like, should I say that? I'm like, we're all friends here.
You can say whatever you want.
But I think like, you see in the personal development space, like entrepreneurs and really high achievers tend to be very high on the autonomy spectrum as far as the autonomy they need. And sometimes I think it slightly colors the conversation. So for instance, if you're in an organization, like I don't know that everybody wants to be entrepreneurs. Like there's some people that like are not happy unless you give them a certain amount of structure and guidance and really sort of like kind of tell them what to do. And frankly, because I believe the healthy organization has diversity, you kind of need some people like that. And I think that's a struggle for a lot of entrepreneurs, myself included, because like that's like the least fun for me to have to really create a very like super structured, and I'll do it, like I'll do whatever I need to do. But like I much prefer managing by complete abdication, right? Being like, you're going to do great. Here's the thing. I'm managing by outcomes. I'm progressive. It's 21st century, right? I'm managing by outcomes. Well, cool. But like some people like are going to like not have the best experience if you do that. And you need that diversity of personality style. So
that's totally, that's good. I think something that's interesting to talk on that kind of relates to the first question, we're going to come back to what you just talked about, building your staff, because there's some interesting questions on that. But the what I want to come back to, because the low self-efficacy is you don't deal with the standard population of gym people, right? So I think that's something to note. Like you have a special thing where I remember one time, you and I were talking. I think I was in your office or your kitchen or one of those places that all kind of run together.
Same thing, basically.
And you were saying about how like more people cry in fucking MFF than anything. That's something that you guys deal with a lot. So it's like that whole low self-efficacy and being able to meet someone where they're at, make them feel comfortable in a setting of, working at a gym, which is something that you not typically relate to, and then get them to go somewhere. I think that that's something to note,
Yeah, it's a wild thing, man. It's like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't fucking have like life figured out. And like, I like think like we all have like fucking sadness and moments, and like, I like MFF like at its best is a place where like, yeah, it's okay. Like, I care if you're crying because I care about you, but like, I don't really care if you're crying in the sense like, yeah, fucking cry. Yeah, you're fucking sad. Like, life sucks. Like, things are really unhappy sometimes. And like, people do hurtful things and like people do love die. And like, that's like life and it's painful. But like, let's just like fucking feel all of it and fucking swing some fucking kettlebells and lift some shit and like get it out and fucking high five and we'll feel better. And then we'll be like, feel a little bit stirred up, go back out in the world and kick some ass.
It's awesome. That's awesome. That's perfect. So that's a really good way to look at it. I like that a lot. So let's move on. So we went into your management style and how, I think that's something Chris and I have talked about a lot too, is like, we both kind of resonate with you, whereas we really don't want to fucking be told what to do, but we can't have the expectation of everyone else living your life or expecting the same thing you did. So, the question we have kind of leads into that. So I see that you have a fairly large staff. How long did it take to build such a staff, and what is the most important thing that you did to get them to buy into your culture and your vision?
I'm so sorry. I think you broke up a little bit. The question was, how long did it take to build up the staff?
Yeah, so how long, and what was the most important thing you did to get them to buy into your vision?
Oh, it's so, it's so cliche, but we really looked for people that were like burning with the light of 1,000 suns to become part of the culture. Yeah. The honest answer is the beginning, like absolute dumb luck, right? The beginning was like, had no idea what I was doing. I stepped in shit. It just like, and I still think like, listen, I think I have good people instincts, but I'm enough of a cognitive psychology nerd that it's hard for me to really like ever trust myself because I'm like, well, my brain's fucking tricking me again. But I will say that in the beginning, the first few like people we brought on were Kyle Langworthy, the Beast, well, and Brian Patrick Murphy, the Mr. Belief, the Manimal. And, those were just like, Brian was like my friend who I'd like spent my 20s like getting drunk and chasing girls with in the musical theater community. And then Beast was this kid I met like once, but who like seemed sort of sweet. And he was the only person I ever met besides me who actually was interested in training. Cause I was like a fucking lone wolf, man. I mean, my first 5 years in the industry, like I didn't know anyone. I worked at a gym where I was a trainer by myself. I'd be like the sad guy, like, with my functional movement screen, like reading Starting Strength, reading a Dan John book, just looking around lonely because everyone else is doing like one rep to failure, which is like totally cool because I came out of Flex magazine too. So, I totally get you guys. I get where you're from, but like I'm a functional trainer. So in the beginning it was that. I think we got lucky in that once we had that base established, I think we started attracting similar people. And I will say this, if I was going to give like an action step, and it sort of happened the same time we got Kyle and Brian, but my business partner, Michael, and I, the first thing we did was like, because we didn't know any better. We were like, well, if we have a business, we really need to be clear about what we value. So like we did like a full day retreat in my apartment with like a PowerPoint, sat there and really chewed on like, well, what do we want to stand for? Like, what is like our vision? Like, why should this place exist in the first place? And me, like I was a student of very like heavy business books at that point. His background was the arts nonprofit. And I think the key thing is if you're super clear about what your mission is, if you're super clear about what you value, other people will start to raise their hands and be like, yes, like I also see the same things you see. I want to fight the same challenge as you. I want to go on a worthy quest and contribute myself to something larger with me, and in exchange become the best version of myself I can be. So, that's, like I said, it's like on the one hand, it's kind of like heady, but it's really not. Because again, like specific action steps are, if you talk publicly on Facebook, about what your values are, like that's going to matter, right? If your business is really, because we also, like many places, hired a lot of people that were ninjas. So after the first few hires, like several hires after that were ninjas. To this day, most of our business team was originally ninjas. So it was such an easy screening process because we get to know them really well and they get to know us really well. And I think, again, if your business is really reflective of those things, you're going to start to attract like the right people that are doing it. Yeah, I think that's, and as far as like the how long question, it's kind of easy. I mean, we're in now, we just started our 5th year. The training team hasn't really grown in like a year and change because we're like just about at capacity, the current clubhouse. So yeah, so we've had the same crew for a while now.
Good. Does anybody have any questions based on that?
You're all muted, so if you want to say something, unmute yourself.
And if you don't want to say anything, just forever hold your peace.
Let me at least real quick unmute people that actually called in because I don't know if they can unmute themselves. Oh, no one else is here on the phone number.
Good.
We're all good.
Yeah. Okay. The next thing,
I just wanted to just say hello.
Oh, hey.
What's up, no?
Yeah, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Well, we've met before. So.
No, not you guys. Forget you guys. The handsome guy.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Flatter, you're everywhere.
Yeah. No, it's just a pleasure. You know, I'm owner of a studio as well on the Upper East Side. I have a better.
Whoa!
Look at that. Step it up a little bit.
Up and son of a bitch.
I was
son of a bitch.
I know, man. I wanted to say, well, like better is like an opinion thing, but like no, that's clearly better bow tie. I've invested.
You're the man. I watched you on TED Talks. It was great. I definitely, I'm curious. You know, you said you had you were very super clear on your values and your mission. It's something that I'm in my 5th year and I'm still struggling on.
Yeah.
And I have a pretty successful business in the city, but, you know, I think that's one thing that really I need to get straight. And
Sure.
I'm wondering if you have any advice on that, you know, because I know you found your niche, niche people, you deal with a lot of people that are on Broadway and things like that. I deal with general population, it's incredible. Yeah. It's difficult to find a niche in Manhattan,
Yeah, for sure.
So
yeah.
I'm on the Upper East Side. I don't know.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for saying those kind things. And like, please come hang out sometime. If you're on the Upper East Side, we should like hang out. I would love, like, please, my email is mark@markfisherfitness.com. Let's get lunch sometime. Cool. I'd love to have you over and like shoot the shit. I'm always interested in learning what knowledge and secrets other people have we can all share together. But I think, the first thing I would say about like, niches are, it's one thing I'll say, it's sort of like interesting about MFF that from the press, and we've fanned these flames like ruthlessly, has always really focused on Mark Fisher Fitness being the Broadway gym, right? And it's been an amazing angle for us, and it's how we've got the press we have without ever having to use a PR person. And now that we have a national product because we have an online platform called mybroadwaybody.com, in most of our press, we will purposefully really push the Broadway angle because it makes their story better. And it is better marketing for our online platform. But Mark Fisher Fitness in person is a little bit broader niche, but it's still niched very specifically as the Isle of Misfit Toys, right? So after our first year, we really expanded out past Broadway to people that hate gyms, which turned out to be like a very like large market, but still a market you could talk very specifically to. As far as the specific question, how one develops the values, I think you find your values by what fucking enrages you, like what makes you so mad. Then you have to like pivot off it. But like the things that piss you off are like your values in reverse, right? And like anger, like it's probably not a useful thing to live in like a long time. And I think another thing we've seen sort of in the study of human behavioral change, it's very hard to move away from something. You actually need to move towards something. But I think a strong contrast really provides you something to pivot off of as fast as you can. So I think a thing that could be a useful exercise, and this is really even as MFF, because we're still evolving, right? Like I'm still like figuring this out. A lot of our values came from, honestly, when I saw a moment where we did something, and it could be external, but like if we did something, I was like, that's not who we are. Like, that's not who we are, what just happened just now. And that really upsets me. And it's on me, right? Because when you're the owner operator, you know, the great news is everything is your fucking fault. And I'm being 100% honest. It's like, everything is my fault and I deserve none of the credit. And like, that's not false humility. Like, I do not have MFF like that. This place is built on the fucking blood and sweat and tears of people that are like mostly smarter and better humans than I am. And they have to overcome a lot of my personal failings. So, however, you know, as sort of the keeper of the values, like, you know, like when that happens, it's also like, I know, okay, well, dude, how was I clear about what that challenge was, you know? And it's always no, right? It's always like, the team is amazing. If they do something, you know, I'll give you like a very specific example of something that really like, kind of grinds my gears. So, you know, one thing that like, you know, Todd knows, but I think it's like not always like immediately apparent, is like, we have a lot of fucking bright coaches. We have a lot of really fucking super well-educated coaches. And sometimes the fighting, like not fighting, and I want conflict, right? Like, I'm very inspired by Team of Rivals, right? Abraham Lincoln. Like, I want people with diverse backgrounds. I want people with different certifications that went to different intern programs. I purposely want to be like, oh, if I bring in this fucking person, they're going to like fucking spice things up. However, I believe in like 0% certainty and 100% belief. I think that like half of what we know is wrong. We don't know what half. I want to enter every conversation with the possibility that I could be wrong. So, and you see this all the time online, right? And like any realm, certainly in the fitness realm, someone just starts like posting up, right? Because they're right. And it's not just they're right, but they're making other people wrong. So when I see that, it really hurts my heart, because I feel like that's the end of growth, right? Like, it's intellectually dishonest to be like, oh, I'm right, I got to figure it out. And that's sort of a roundabout way of saying, when I really discovered nothing is more important to me than humility. Nothing is more important than starting the conversation, and not just fitness, but frankly with like an interpersonal conflict, which happens from time to time, than being with people that are able to start the conversation by being like, you know, I don't know what I don't know. And I have this perspective I'm going to share with you, but I have to have an open mind, because I don't know what I don't know. And whatever I think, I know I could be wrong about, because all of us can agree there's probably things that 3 years ago, you know, look at, even the fitness industry, it's like hilarious what happened in the past, like, you know, 10 years. Like, you know, it's really like remarkable things. We're like, oh, don't ever do this. And then we're like, oh, fuck. You know, and I'm like agnostic. Like, you know, class example right now is I think Pure Eye is amazing. Bill Hartman is like one of my mentors. I cannot deny there's some amazing shit with that, but like, I have to take everything with a grain of salt these days, because I'm like, yep, this seems right for now until something changes. Mm-hmm. So that's why, like, I also think psychologically, I choose not to really like, and this is something I struggle with. It's something I'm trying to work on this year. It's hard for me. I'm reluctant oftentimes to really commit to things, because I'm just like, well, I don't know if that's true. And I don't want to like stick myself with accidental consistency, because now I've made a stand for this. So my brain's going to start tricking me and be like, well, now it must be right, because I said it, that I believe it. So I don't know. So it's, again, it's sort of roundabout answer. But I would say that the action step is like, figure out what pisses you off. And then go the opposite direction. Yeah. And then obviously with your team, you know, the thing that, and this is another thing I know we could do a better job of, right? Like, it's just like talk about that shit all the time. And we do at MFF, but I think one thing we can do more of is we should talk about it in a more structured way. And that's one thing this year we're, I think, going to really finally address with the way our team meetings are structured, because values obviously need to live in action. And we all know, like, that's why like a lot of people are like even like turned off about to talk about values these days, because it's like, oh, you mean like the fucking eagle that the suit puts up on the fucking wall, and it's like, oh, excellence lives here. Like, you fucking suit, you know, like, so like we're all, you know, we're bummed by that, right? And I think that, you know, it's important for everyone to be clear about it, so we can also all hold each other accountable. The values have to live in reality. Otherwise it's just like heady kind of like blah, 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 you know. But again, like, listen, I think we could do better with that, if I'm being honest, because I can't help it, because I'm pathologically honest.
Awesome.
Nice. Good.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, let's hang out.
Definitely. I'll definitely
right on.
For sure.
So that kind of leads in, you kind of talked a little bit about staff stuff there, and about mentoring and making sure everybody feels a part of the team, and facilitating that conflict so people can kind of grow through that conflict. So leading into that, you know, we have a question about, what do you do with mentoring your trainers? How do you how do you keep them feeling like they're a part of Mark Fisher Fitness and that they're not just another trainer that's kind of passing through? And you kind of preemptively answered that by the people that you seek out, but
yeah.
what are some other things that you do? I know that Kyle and I have talked extensively about that, and I think that would be really great for them to hear this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's, very, very specifically, right. It's, again, it's very like cliche, right. But all humans, I think, in any organization, you want to contribute to something that's greater than yourself. Right. And in MFF, we're very lucky because we have like a fucking culty, holy mission. We want to, bring the nations of the earth to our kingdom of Unicorpia, right? Like there's like this full and you're constantly getting that feedback from people. So that part actually is kind of easy, right? The sort of fulfillment of contributing to a mission. I think it's people also want to constantly be developing themselves. And that is, again, one thing that gets hard because, again, of the autonomy piece. So specifically, I think it's why actually building in education as an intense thing into a culture. Because I'm also, this is something I don't know if it's true or not, but something I've been wondering, and maybe you guys know and have an opinion, or you can tell me if you know if it's true. I feel like when people get really burnt out on training, they're not educating themselves enough. I feel like people get bored of training unless they're spending some time restoking the fire and learning shit. And admittedly, and this is something because my spider sense, we have a lot of advanced trainees on here. One thing that gets tough because, again, organisms crave increasing levels of mastery, but there is a certain level of training proficiency, particularly when you do general population only, where you can fall down to some rabbit holes, right? You can fall down to some faux clinical rabbit holes. You can be like Mrs. Rossini, can be doing, 9 sets of 3 with chains, might not be the most appropriate thing for Mrs. Rossini to be doing. And there's a balance, I think, because when you're dealing with general population, you can, and when you're doing it at scale, there's only so much level of complexity you can get to. I mean, there's plenty, but that I think is one thing that is a little bit of attention, right? So you have to keep working on your craft. You have to keep working at coaching and training, but you need to sort of be mindful that you're balancing your passions with staying on the agenda of the people you're looking to serve. So I think that the education piece is part, I think very specifically what we do at MFF, and again, we're a little bit bigger now, so it took us years to get here. But we do, we do book reports every 2 months, right? Where we will get everyone a book and we will all do it. And God fucking love these crazy assholes that will all write me a book report, fucking grown adults. And I'm write me a book report. And it's always about write me a book report about your feelings, right? It's always mostly interpersonal stuff. Right. So the team, when we do stuff, it's mostly crucial conversations or conscious capitalism or to sell as human, where I'm really trying to make sure we have a similar songbook we're singing from for as far as our culture, how we interact with each other. Then obviously weekly meetings are a helpful thing when your business is big enough to do it. We do a 4-week phase. So a 4-week phase it's constantly alternating. We do one that's on customer service. We do one that's on life coaching or just coaching in general, coaching, not necessarily, definitely you do this while training, but not coaching, training stuff, coaching, how to ask open-ended questions and the different levels of listening. And then we do the 3rd week is a trainer breakout, a biz team breakout. That's usually do an in-service, which is either something we'll prepare internally. Sometimes we'll have a big handsome guy like Todd come in. And then 4th, we teach the new class phase. So every 4 weeks, we have roll out a new phase of our group kettlebell classes, which is actually one of being a very useful teaching tool because in teaching the new phase, essentially not only do we get on the same page about it, but we get to go into detail about why that program designer made those questions. What are the things to sort of look out for in coaching the ninjas? We can have an ongoing dialogue about what are the current trends we're seeing right now in the ninjas. Because again, it's it's so funny. MFF is and again, I did it. I'm cool with it. I know, everyone's it's the dildo place. What? Dildos. They're dildos. But then you come in and we're arguing about the position of the rib cage. But what about relative thoracic extension? Not everyone has a flat T-spine. And really these what is the proper function of the lat and overhead press? But it's my fucking dream, obviously. And what that class phase has really allowed us to do. So, and for me, that feels good too, because the other educational paradigm I try to get with the team is, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Is I try to spend half the time working on your professional skill set. And for the trainers, that's obviously it's training. It's like training, learning how to coach exercises, program design, energy systems, all that type of stuff. And then half the time, personal development, interpersonal stuff. Right. So those are the two pieces we're kind of always working on. I think the final piece of the conversation outside of education as it relates to how do you keep people engaged? It's real fucking tough, man. It's real tough. I think, as always, I think just utter transparency about stuff because, you know, the businesses can only grow so fast, right? So you only have so much opportunity, you know, there's only so much room for advancement for so many people. Like it's not likely that everyone on the team right now is going to own their own clubhouse at some point. So the opportunity I have to offer them other like professional opportunities is limited by our growth. And obviously the growth of the business depends upon what makes sense. And in New York, it's mostly real estate based, right? It's like, I'm just waiting. I'm ready to go. I've been for 2 years. And that's been tough because a lot of them honestly have been waiting for more opportunity. And we run the risk of them getting a little stagnant. So my approach of late has been like, let's just be honest and realize that like some of you shouldn't stay here forever. And that makes me so fucking hurt and sad. But like some of you shouldn't stay here forever. And my intention, like my commitment is to do the best I can with my like limited capabilities to make you the best person that you can be. And the best whatever it is you want to be, right? It's a thing like just whatever you are, be a good one, right? And like I want MFF to do that for everyone who's here. And I believe that we, you know, remains to be seen. It's a big ask. We can remain conscious with each other if there's a certain point where it's like, okay, you got to go. Like you're sandbagging it, you know, and it's not because you don't love us. It's just like we can't offer you the opportunities you have here. So I think part of it is, you know, being willing to have that type of conversation, man. And that's like fucking tough. And that's like still tears me apart because up until like a year ago, I was like, everyone's going to stay forever and we'll just have increasing levels of changes. And, you know, we had like the team, you know, God love me, like a real talk meeting about it, man. And I was like, of course, like fucking crying. Cause I had this dream, right? Sorry, this is where the tangent. I've never had like a dog. We grew up with a dog, right? And I love dogs. I love animals, but I've never really had like a pet that identified with me as like, you're my person. Do you know what I mean? Like certain animals have like, oh, you're my person. And I had this fucking dream where I had a baby tiger. I had a baby tiger and I knew I couldn't keep it because it's a baby tiger. And everyone wants to keep the baby tiger because it's so adorable. And the whole dream, everyone's like, oh my God, it's the best, keep the baby tiger. And I have this adorable baby tiger that like, I'm its person. Like I'm its thing and I'm its favorite and it loves me. And I knew the baby tiger was going to grow up and wouldn't be safe here. So I had to let it go. And at the end of the dream, I gave the baby tiger away and I woke up my girlfriend because I was sobbing so hard. And I told a member of my team about that. And he was like, I think that's like, you understand that like not everyone can stay here forever. And I was like, fuck. So I think weirdly, you know, part of the solution is just accept that like in our industry, based on what the size of your business, because it's got to be, you know, you're the owner operator. It's got to fit your lifestyle, like what you want. You just have to accept like people can't necessarily all stay there forever. And you'll have some people that will, and you'll have some that won't, you know, and certainly you can make room for entrepreneurs, right? People that in your business, you can try to help run sub businesses. But I think it's also worth knowing that developing other business owners in your business is now yet another different skill set. And that's something that like I'm working on right now that I'm not very good at yet. And once again, my team is taking all the lumps because I suck, but I think I'm going to get good because I'm try hard. But like, you know, it's one thing to turn somebody into a trainer. It's one thing to turn somebody into a manager. Like I don't know yet how to turn someone into run a business for us yet. You know, and it's something I'm really working on this year. And again, I got really patient people, so hopefully I'll figure it out.
That's awesome.
And if not, they'll quit and I'll love them. I'll be like, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Before I open up to anybody to ask anything based on that, I can actually personally attest to all of this because I've had this conversation face to face with Mark in his office about, you know, the vision of developing people into what they want to be and where they want to go and any part that he can play in that. And it's legitimately like, that was a long fucking day. Like I was coming from Connecticut. I stopped at Mark Fisher's to hang out with him and talk with him. And then I had to drive from there to Pennsylvania to take my mom to a doctor's appointment. And it was like, I just kind of reflected that on that for like the 5-hour drive that I had. And it's like, there's not a lot of that, you know what I mean? And the realness that's there, but also the authenticity, but also there's a lot of people that say shit like that and they don't really fucking mean it. And it was like, I walked out of there with some pretty heavy shit and think this is a special thing. So I think that if you can take that lesson from him and figure out how to apply that personally, interpersonally, whatever it is in your life, your business, whatever it is, even if it's just you coaching your people, I think it's so big. It really is.
Thank you for saying that. And one thing I would sort of offer to that as like a framing, because like you're right. Like I don't know that's like really a super commonly executed thing, but again, I always I'm not perfect, right? So like I do my best to live that. Like I think like that's something I'm pretty good at. But I would offer that the people that are saying that aren't necessarily living that, I believe are trying to live that. And I know that they're not successful at it yet. But like I'm just like I will make such an evidence-based fucking argument for optimism for the development of humanity. Like I will fuck you with data. Like I believe humans are getting better. Like I really do believe we're going to see more and more of this. And although on the one hand it's disappointing we don't have more of it yet, and it's disappointing that people say that but don't rise to it, I am currently like inspired to be alive because I think there's going to be more and more of it. And I think we're going to see the businesses that can do that, that are able to pull that off, make more money than the other businesses. And I think we're going to start to change the culture because like you're going to have to, if you want to compete with businesses that have that type of culture, like you're not going to outmuscle them, right? Like you've got to learn how to like, water overcomes motherfucking rock, right? Like you've got to like learn how to like get your shit right so you really can live like that, particularly in a service business, because you need those high achievers. People that are high achievers that are very emotionally evolved with a lot of mastery, that are easy to be around. They just don't want to hang around with people that are fucking like not cool. And they certainly don't want to work for someone that's not cool. They're fucking out, Yeah,
finances aren't enough anymore. It doesn't do it all.
Yeah, you got and Daniel Pink again. I think is he's still totally right. Like you got to pay enough to get it off the table, but like after that, that's not really what people are looking for.
100%, totally agree.
Mark, quick question? Can you expand on the book report thing?
Oh yeah. So basically, like every 2 months, I basically buy everyone a book, or I get them an audio book of something I've read that I'm like a crazy reader. I read very many books. And periodically I'll read something. I'm like, oh, like this is like, I want everyone to know this thing. And usually it's a combination of a book that I think is like so crucial that I want us all to be on the same page, at least if nothing else, like, hey, this is my vision for MFF, right? Because some of them are like, not always, Conscious Capitalism for me, like is a really like powerful book and really sums up my vision for businesses, that the first point of the business is social impact. You have to make profit or you go broke. It's not wrong to make profit. It's not wrong to make a fuck ton of money, but the point of the business is social impact, right? It's the same thing with like an individual person. You're not working for money. It's not wrong to make a lot of money, but the point of a business needs to be social impact. So I think about like what challenges we're having. And a lot of them tend to be around like conversation skills, like how do we deal with sort of like internal conflict, because like that's a thing, like we're like anywhere else, people don't get along. People like don't say what they mean. Sometimes they gossip about each other, perfectly normal. But as far as I'm concerned, the more I can help us all get better at that, myself included, I think the better off the business is. So that's why the things I have them read are rarely actually anything to do with like training. They're business books, but they tend to be business books that deal specifically with like healthy business relationships.
Cool.
But again, that's just like, my personal philosophy. So
it's also good. It brings unity, together. So
yeah, what's the thing, if we, at least we all know, that to my mind, right. That's like the leader's job. Number one, it seems, is you just like need to talk about the mission, the values to like your fast learners, right? You're really fast learners. I'll say this, I'll throw him on the bus here because my friend Ed Save is here. I want to see like Harold Gibbons being like, shut the fuck up, right? I want to see Harold being like annoyed because Harold's so bright and just such a fast learner, that like your job is to talk, like until people are really complaining and are like, shut the fuck up about the values. You're just not there yet. People don't actually really know them the way that you need them to. And that's a tough lesson too that I think is hard. Curse of knowledge, something I'm sure many of you are familiar with. It's very hard to remember what it's like to not know something. So one thing I learn every day, and just this past week, I've really like kind of fucked something up, and it's like not the end of the world, and like I'm gonna stop beating myself up about it, but it came from not realizing how you just have to over communicate everything all the time. Like if people don't feel looped in, they're just like, what the fuck? Nobody told me, you know, like, and different people are different. Some are a little bit more ready to riff on the fly, but over communicating everything is very, very important. Like I would rather have people be like, we're talking too much. I need at least some people to say we're talking too much, and ideally some people to say we're not talking enough. It's got to be sweet spot. But most leaders, I think most organizations probably communicate too little, probably don't loop people enough and like, here's the vision. You know, I'm a big fan of open book management. We're very open with the finances with like everyone, with you guys, you want to know, like, I don't give a fuck, like I got nothing to hide. And I think like you're better off when you do that because the team knows what's going on. Because in any organization, I believe that you're going to have this inherent tendency for the people working for the organization to distrust leadership, right? Just as it, you know, owner operators, your tendency, your smaller angels, your darker angels will be like, they don't appreciate it. And what am I paying them for? I'm paying them good money. They don't appreciate what I'm doing for them. And like, that's cool, but it's kind of like just not the probably winning strategy. Probably not totally accurate. Just as it's not fair of them when they're, you know, not being gracious with management. But to my mind, it's like, that's the thing. You got to build that base of trust and that like utter transparency. It's like hard to get by. And what they perceive as transparency, we will often perceive as just burying them with like monotony repetition. But repetition is the mother of mastery.
100%.
Sure.
Yeah.
Any other questions based on that stuff? No? Bueller? Good. Okay. So this is actually, I want to jump to this one because it's an interesting question because I know that I'm one of the few in this session here that's actually experienced the Mark Fisher fitness environment. So you have an eclectic population of clients and coworkers, and you have a really productive product all at the same time. And you also have a lot of dildos in your business.
We do.
How do you maintain some kind of a boundary?
Yeah, you know, it's like the art of human relations. I mean, we don't have like, there's no rule about like, this is like kind of too far. We do have like the obvious ones, which are like, don't sexually harass someone, don't sexually objectify someone. Like the ones that like, we have those like written down, but I wouldn't like be able to work with anybody that was like unclear. And the thing is, everyone comes from such a place of like bizarre wholesomeness. And, you know, you've seen it, Todd, you've seen it in person, right? There's this very weird disconnect between a lot of like vulgar language, but like this, like kindergarten teacher style, like very maternal, motherly, nurturing thing. That's very gentle. That's just super fucking weird. But like, you know, and listen, like admittedly at times in our history, we've had people who've struggled with it, right? We've had people like, and we've definitely like, most people on the team, I'm sure I probably have. I can't tell you. I'm sure I haven't. Just like nobody was like, that was awkward. You know, like when they're trying to be ridiculous human, I say sometimes they like jump off the cliff and they like don't quite make it. Because if you're going to do it, you got to be like Brian Patrick Murphy, who's like, I'm in here and I'm going to put my fucking finger in every one of your fucking assholes and you're going to like it. And everyone's like, because it's so over the top. And then like someone will be like, and after class, we're all gonna have a gangbang, and that's just like, oh, he didn't make it, and they're just like chirp, just like silence. Like the whole the room just gets colder. So having said that, again, one of the things that, you know, again, I have to concede for you guys is like, you know, as crazy as batshit crazy as we are, I will say MFF has like, and again, I've done it. I did it on purpose. I'm a marketer, has a reputation of being probably a little crazier than we are. Right. Like, it's like funny. I was up at like, it is a little bit of a game of telephone. Like I was up at Perform Bend, Rhode Island, and like it was such a fucking like it was a huge fucking honor and like ego stroke because like literally like 8 of the people like would bring up Mark Fisher Fitness in their things, but they kept saying like crazier shit. They were like, last year they made $10 million, and for their finisher they let out rabid gay monkeys. They try to rape them, and they work out naked in Central Park. And I'm like. And then if you come to the clubhouse, you're like, there's like someone doing a deadlift and a trainer is wearing a cape. And there's like, dildo in the corner, right? So the reality is like, I think part of it is we're probably not quite as ribald as we may seem. I mean, we do like kind of curse a lot, but like it's in New York. And that going a longer tangent, that's actually kind of related to sort of one of my values. The importance of like not giving certain words like power. And that's one that's like a value that there's an equally valid value that says we shouldn't ever say anything that could kind of harm someone else. And I get that, but for me, it's like I really aspire to be around people that don't like give particular words like a thing. That's why like I have a very different code of conduct around children. And if anyone's following me for a long time, you'll know my shit has chilled out because what's happened is there's a lot of high school kids that are Broadway fans that have started following me obsessively and like, what are you going to do, right? They're not my kids. And I do have a real strict line about like, what I feel comfortable posting. So I don't know if that answers the question at all, but.
No, I think it does. It totally does. I think it's great. I want to sneak a question in here before anybody else. Does anybody have anything on that? No? Mike Connolly's shaking his head. No. Look at his beard. It's great.
A handsome beard.
Magnificent, handsome, red, strong jaw, no hair. That's Mike Connolly. So listen, your branding is amazing. So, and I know part and parcel that's because it's an example of your personality is kind of congealed into a message, which is something that's awesome. But how, you have great images. Like I used the image of the one that you have on the wall of like, you have the Beast portrait and your portrait, the Master Ninja portrait. And I use that as an image to, promote this within our group and say, hey, Mark's coming, blah, blah, blah. So I use that picture. And, but the work on that, the graphic design on that is unbelievable. So how important is it in having that kind of branding, like having a good graphic designer, having all of these things to kind of help make an example of your brand and really spread it?
Yeah, I think there's really 2 points of view around that. I think like there's 2 points of view. So first of all, again, I once again step in shit. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Somebody needed muted. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
One of the things that I got very lucky is that my business partner is a design genius. So I sort of like inherited a best friend that I grew up with that like was just good at a lot of that type of stuff. I'll say this. I'll say that as the fitness industry continues to mature, in any mature industry, I think you see a trend towards aesthetics starting to matter more. Right. Like Apple, like perfect example, right? Like when industries reach a certain level of maturity, it's no longer about a great service and a great product. It also wants to like look beautiful. And that carries some challenges with it because oftentimes what that means is going up market, right? If you look in the fitness industry, look at an example of like a sort of high art brand, like Equinox is sort of like doing that, right? With their ads and their things. And that's cool, but it requires you going like up market. And for me, that's like, first of all, from strategically, I think there's a huge opportunity not going crazy up market, particularly in New York City. And I grew up like not with much money. So I was broke as a joke for most of my life. So I don't feel great about that. But I do think design matters. I do think, I think that design matters. Certainly MFF, is far further than most businesses would sort of need to go. But I do think that making things look good is useful. In the fitness industry, you have a lot of coaches tend to be a little more left-brainier, tend to be a little more analytical, tend to be a little bit more super trainy. And for that reason, they generally benefit from getting some right brain insight, and you could go on Fiverr, you go on 99 Designs. There's ways of getting that help. I will also say somewhat counterintuitive, as strong as I do think our visual branding is, I still will say I'm definitely believe that like probably direct response, if you're looking to strictly grow the business, understanding direct marketing is probably more important. And that's something I think we're only now developing a competency in. The people to go to for that, I think in the fitness space, I think Majors Cooling does a great job of that. I think Thomas Plummer is always a great guy to read for anything. Dan Kennedy is the original guy that all roads lead back. If you want to learn more about what direct response marketing is, it's Dan Kennedy. Because again, brand awareness is great. And if you're going to do it, you should do it like MFF, but it's hard to do it like MFF because we're fucked up. Because we've been lucky because it's so insane that it does what Seth Godin calls purple cow marketing. So it's when people see our shit, they're like, what the fuck is wrong with them, right? And then they just remember it. Whereas admittedly, it's one of the challenges of kind of that Noam spoke to. It's harder, I think, to find like a hardcore brand unless you happen to genuinely sort of be insane. So I think you should make your stuff look beautiful, but I think rather than stress yourself out too much about the graphic things, once it looks like professional enough, I think you're best off really studying direct response marketing, getting proficient, understanding like sales copy and how to run a Facebook ad and all that type of stuff. It's just a much better bang for your buck.
Yeah. What do you think about the authenticity of Brando, like the transparency? Because I think one of the things that I do like is that not only does your brand look good as far as like the design aspect of everything, but it's exactly who you guys are. So I think that there's something to be said for that. And I think finding someone that can do that interaction is probably pretty much a good thing. So you kind of have somebody in-house, but I think that that's something to speak to.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. I lucked out with that. I think, you're right. Listen, nothing will ever be as easy as like creating with like your best friend from childhood who like knows you like the back of his thumb, So we were very lucky in that respect. I think if you were going to work with someone to just work on the design of your facility, you do want to look for someone that understands design principles of contrast. And I think going back to Noam's point again, I know I'm like a broken fucking record, but I think the clearer you are about your mission, your values, I think the clearer you can get actually about your client avatar, right? And I know some of you wear that sort of like just go deep on that psychographic material, right? So one of my sort of things like that I'm playing with in my head right now that I may later be like, that was stupid. Right now what I think is that like culture is like on the one hand, it's your mission and your values and who you authentically are and how you show up. And on the other hand, it needs to be your clients. It needs to be your avatar and who you're looking to serve, right? And I think even visually, it needs to be a balance both of like what I'm inspired by and what the people that I'm really looking to serve are inspired by. There's a great book called So Good They Can't Ignore You by Cal Newport that it's interesting. The premise of the book, it's sort of purposefully contrarian, talks about the difference between passion hypothesis, I think, and they calls it like the craftsman hypothesis. Passion hypothesis is like Joseph Campbell, follow your bliss and the money will come, right? If you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. Steve Jobs, they don't know what they want until I tell them. Henry Ford, like if I just listen to what people want, I would have given a motorized horse, right? Follow your bliss, right? Do what you want and the money will come. Then you have the other side, which is like, well, yeah, but if no one's paying you money, it's probably because it's not valuable to anyone. Like, so you can do what you want, but you shouldn't expect to get money if it's not fucking useful. If no one wants it, you're kind of masturbating, right? Like you're not really giving value to anyone. It's like, I don't care. It's my thing. I'm passionate about this thing, and like, that's cool. But on the other hand, if it's only about what the people are, it's a kind of selling out, right? If it's only like, you're like, oh, I'm just going to train soccer moms. I did a demographic thing and like I'm this hardcore powerlifter chains, heavy metal dude, but like I'm gonna, just try to just talk in the words that the moms want, I guess, and I can make money, I guess, right? And to me, it's a little bit like of a false dichotomy. It's like you need both, right? You need both like who you are and like who you're looking to serve. And I think if you're working with a designer, that information is crucial. Right. And I think you can expedite that process even with a freelancer by, you probably could create some sort of report. I bet you can make like a 5 to 10 page report and be like, if you're going to work with me, here's everything you need to know about this person I'm looking to serve. And here's everything you need to know about what I believe in, what I stand for, and how I show up in the world.
Perfect. 100%. I couldn't agree more. Anybody have anything based on that? Bueller? Listen, guys, we have like 5 minutes. And this is a pretty rare opportunity. So if you have something that you would like to ask Mark or say anything, I would unmute yourself and do that as quickly as possible. Crickets.
Everybody's
how to unmute. Is it because
you hate me?
Jester's having
No one's going to talk. I'll take.
There you go. No, I like it. I like it. No, go ahead.
This is, I guess, in the New York market. I'm just curious what your thoughts are. I know you don't deal with ClassPass, but what are your thoughts on ClassPass?
Oh yeah. So I think it's fine. Again, like I can't wait to hang out with you, man. I've made it my goal to hang out with everyone who owns a gym in New York, and like I know of your stuff, and I just haven't had a chance. Like, hey, dude, let's hang out. So because of that, I know like a lot of people in the New York market now, and I've mostly heard not great things. I don't know what your experience is. I know that for Mark Fisher Fitness, it was a misnomer. So people that aren't familiar, ClassPass is in New York City. It's a lot of like major metropolitan markets. Basically, for like a very great rate, it allows people to take essentially like unlimited total classes, and I think it's like up to 3 at any studio that is also part of ClassPass. And they pitch it. It's a brilliant business plan because they pitch it because you could, like in New York, I think it's like like $99 per month or something. It's like
$125 now. They just raised it.
Yeah, it's so cheap. And then they pitch it to the business owners to do it because they're like, well, we're going to give you like a few dollars for every person who does it. You can control the capacity. So you can be like, I'm only going to let them do it on my off times, right? So they make a really, really compelling case for it. And I don't think that's wrong. And a lot of gyms have a very sort of transient nature. But at Mark Fisher Fitness, both from a business perspective, a values perspective, and training results perspective, we only do membership only. So we don't want no randos coming in there. You know what I mean? Like, and it sucks at MFF because it's like hard to start because even if you want to start with like you can buy a 3-month membership, or if you want to do something like low commitment, you can do the month-long Ninja Academy, and you still have to come in for a consultation. You still have to do the 3-class Ninja Baptism sequence before they let you take any class. Then, you've got 4 semi-privates and 8 classes. Like the onboarding is so precise for what we do. But as you guys know, it's like, it's just not fun when someone comes in and like, you don't have a chance to like do your thing. It's like, I'm not serving you. You're not having fun. I feel like an asshole. So although it does certainly present a barrier, I will say one thing that we found value is that onboarding process. I will also say, because like I'm the person who I struggle with self-esteem a lot. So I feel badly lots of times when I hear people talk. So I'm like, oh fuck, like everyone's fucking got to figure it out. So one thing you should know, if anyone's like, oh shit, I don't have a 3-class sequence, is like, we're really big now. We didn't have the capacity to do that for a long time. Right. So like, I will say our onboarding now is so much better because we have 3 full classes, which is like, right. Everyone gets like so long. Just here's how you dial on the foot. Here's what the tripod means, right? We have so much time to really break that apart. So at any rate, for all those reasons, ClassPass wouldn't really work for us. I don't think it's wrong, but do you use ClassPass?
I haven't, because I just opened up my new facility about 6 months ago, and you originally had just semi-private and private.
Sure.
Started introducing group fitness, which is really kind of, it's, unfortunately, it's kind of like what I've done in order to give people a little bit of more what they want, which is like that high intensity training, butt kicking kind of workout to complement,
brother. Yeah, man.
Private and private as far as kind of cardiovascular level.
Yeah, sure.
And we program it and things like that,
Yeah, for sure, man.
So, but yeah. So, I mean, we've been able to fill up a lot more spots that way through using ClassPass.
Yeah. So, listen, I mean, I really think it could work, right? Because theoretically what could happen is like they convert, right? My instinct is, and I could be totally wrong, and I think if you're nailing it, you could get around this, is you're generally by definition dealing with like cheap people that like kind of want to go all over. And I don't say that in a negative way, because guess what? Guess who'd be fucking doing ClassPass if I had motherfucking time? This guy, right? I used to take classes all over the city. I'm kind of embarrassed to do now these days, because like I know some gyms like don't let you go in, like Soul Cycle like won't let you in if you're like a well-known trainer. So now I'm like afraid to do it, and I'd be like bummed out, because I can replace abundance. Like I'll do whatever I'll fucking give you guys like money, like whatever you guys need. Like I'll give you anything. But a lot of people don't rock that way. And I get like nervous about it, that they think that like I'm gonna be like scoping them out, that I'm not coming from a place of just abundance, and like, I'm like, yeah, I'm like looking at your shit because I want to steal all your good things. Just like come to my place, you steal all my good things. Let's steal each other's good things. But I know that's like not the way everyone rocks. Plus, like I'm like so fucking genetically like normal. So I'm also, everyone's like, that guy's not really badass. He's like, his abs are okay, but it's not very big. He's a ribcage of an 8-year-old girl. What are you gonna do?
Last pass. So.
So that's great. You do like a three class like intro, kind of like what CrossFit does with their like elements or their whatever it is.
Stole it from CrossFit, baby. Yeah, CrossFit Essentials, but ours the Ninja Baptism. Yep.
Oh, nice.
I think it's one of the ways of like helping in the group model. Because one thing I'd like to speak to real quick, I think is like useful to consider. Listen, man. My thing is like we have like one-on-one training, which I think is like awesome. I think one-on-one training is awesome. I think it's really the best fit for some people some of the time. Certainly, if you can afford it financially and you want to do one-on-one training, great. It might be better for you to do something else, but if you want it, do what the fuck you want, right? If you can afford one-on-one training, you want to do it and you need it. Because some people would be better. They're Groundhog Day clients, right? Groundhog Day clients. Every session is the first session, right? It's been 3 years. Like, we're in a deadlift today. Like, what's a deadlift? Not to mention there's people with like major injury history background, right? That like those clients do better with. There is a place for one-on-one, right? But I think for most people, most of the time, it's hard. It's hard for the business. It's hard for the trainer to scale. You can't help as many people. And then on the other end, right, you have like group exercise, which like I think, again, I'm an agnostic man. If you're fucking getting people moving, you're my friend. I don't give a fuck. Like we might like disagree about some things, like, we might have read some different books, but like you're okay with me. I'm gonna fucking help you. I'm gonna serve you. Right. But admittedly, even now I'm gonna be a dick. Even for me, like there's a point of group fitness where you're like, okay, wait a minute. Right. And I think like, as I'm sure most of the people on this call, I keep saying dudes, but if there's women here, you're a dude too, because I'm from New Jersey. I hope that's okay with you. So all you dudes and dudettes, are probably like serious professionals where we have like our things, right? But I think there's a lot of room for discourse for like, your balance between scale and individuality, right? And it's a fine line, and that, certainly there's a level where it's like, okay, if there's like 100 people in the room, and they're paying $10 and you're making a lot of money and they're having fun, they're moving, that's, I think, fine. It's not what I want to do though, because I'm a fucking nerd. I'm a fitness nerd. I'm just not interested in doing it. And I think I can provide like, I want to create a slightly more sophisticated process that doesn't scale as well, but I do think provides like a better experience. And I think is still meeting them where they're at, right? And again, it's that same thing, right? I'm balancing like what I think matters, but I got to meet them where they're at, and I think the group fitness as a model is like obviously sort of not going away. If anything, for those of you that are real business nerds, we've seen a trend away from what I would refer to as the results fitness semi-private model towards what I would call the Tom Plummer small group model. And what that means is you used to in semi-private training, everyone would have their own program, right? You had maybe a different program design department. We heard MFF. And it's tough. It's tough to do. It's tough to give everyone the attention they need, and listen, at Mark Fisher Fitness, we're still doing it. And I think we're going to keep doing it.
That's what we do.
Yeah, and I like it, and we're able to get away with it. Also, it provides a nice differentiation between our classes. But we also, again, we got lucky because a lot of the challenges of scale, we just fucking like unicorn, like fucking ran through. So we were able to like drop a fuck ton of money, and we'll just make a proprietary app that allows us to scale the program design, where we can integrate very complicated templates that then the trainers can use a drop-down menu, and then use an algorithm based off FMS scores to go in and move around things. So that way we're able to have a sophisticated program design, but in a way that scales. Because for most people, what happens is, and it happens to us too, it like was a real problem. You're doing all that shit on Google Docs. It only scales so much, So we just built our own fucking app, just spent a shit ton of money.
So that's what I just had a conversation. I use Excel and I use iPads on the walls, and we use Excel with a drop-down menu.
Sure.
We have a master programmer, one of my trainers, and she every day is updating programs. Yeah,
and it's totally like like I said, I think that's definitely like a great thing. For us, what we found once we were at the place, because we've got like around 250 semi-private ninjas on some agreement. So between that and
private,
that do the Dragon Lair, so between that and the Snatchers when they come in, in a given month, we could be writing like, that's like sometimes like hundreds of programs, and it just got really hard to write that. And how are we assigning it? And so needs a day off. They can't do it every day. And so, I think we've sort of like figured that out a little bit, but that's the other advantage of classes and the small group model. So the small group model is basically like sophisticated classes. So maybe it's like 4 to 6 people, maybe now you're using racks, but it's not CrossFit, but it's still templated, right? So we're all going to squat at the same time. Mrs. Rossini, you're going to do a goblet squat. So-and-so, you're going to do, a front squat. We're still doing like time-based stuff, but we're counting reps. You're logging what you're doing. We're able to progress in a much more individualized way. We're getting more of a communal experience instead of semi-privates, which is a little bit more of like a curated open gym experience, and that's like, if you look at like, my favorite place in the world, that I love and are the best, right? If you look at like iFast and like Cressy, it's like an open gym with like a curated, coaching experience. And that's amazing. And particularly Cressy, it works great because there's so many athletes, right? So you're looking at pretty self-sufficient people, like my ninjas, my baby loves, my baby girlfriends. They would not do well if there was like a bunch of them sort of on their own, like doing like a fucking PRI corrective, like I gotta coach up that 90-90 a little bit. So anyway, so it's, I think it's the nut we're all trying to solve, right? And I think that there's so many different ways of creating that solution. And as like someone who aspires to serve, I'm just like endlessly fascinated by the different ways people are solving that thing. Because the final point I would make on this sort of tangent is that, they say there's, I think the number is like something that there's like 300,000 personal trainers in America, right? And like, who the fuck knows? Like 150, 500, let's say 300,000. And how many people are in America right now? It's something like 300 million. Is that right?
Like
around.
That.
So like the way I see it, we're all responsible for 1,000 people. Like we all have to scale ourselves so we can take care of 1,000 people. I don't know how to do that yet, guys. I don't know how to do that, but I know if I'm only training like 12 people, even if they're paying me $250 an hour, I would say for me, I'm not talking shit. For me, I wouldn't feel good about that. I want to make a bigger impact on my society, but again, listen, I respect all things. And there's a lot of people that like, listen, I was that guy too for a long time. I was like, I'm never going to do group training. You could put lipstick on a pig and it's still a pig. I do personal training because I'm doing FMS and kettlebell. So fuck you. I watched Training Equals Rehab like 7 times. Fuck you, I was like, you offend me. This industry offends me. And then I was like, whoa, I was really weird. I was really angry back then. That's really weird.
I think the biggest thing that I kind of just took away from that is like when you talked about the semi-private model that you guys used and how you kind of stuck to your guns. I think the biggest thing is like if you're committed to doing something and it's the right fucking way to do something, you'll figure out the way to fucking do it. And I really appreciate that. We figured out the app. We threw money. We want to do it this way, so we'll figure out how we have to do it.
And let me also say to be totally clear, like full like confession and candor, at this point, I don't actually even know that if be perfectly honest, that semi-private really is always a great way to go for general population. Like I think as far as their bang for the buck and what they need, like I think there's different people doing it differently. And like, I'm, as you can like now you all know me, I'm like actually totally a nerd, even though like there's dildos at our place. But like, and I think there's definitely people that for me are doing it too crudely. It's a little too crude. Just as like, listen, there's a lot of people who walk into MFF and be like, oh, this is like grotesque. Like they're just doing an algorithm for the FMS. They're not even doing test retest. Like I don't understand, So like I get it. We all kind of got to pick our battles. And like part of me is like, no, the smaller group guys might be like a better way of doing things for general population. Because again, the more I've been in it, the longer I've been in it. Again, it's one of those things like I struggle with, and I have to admit part of my challenge is, coming like laugh out loud, little ribcage, coming from like a bodybuilder background and then doing 5-3-1 for 2 years and being like, I'm elite FTS guy. And then getting into kettlebells, like we all fucking do. Right. Part of me wonders if like, I'm still so biased by that strength thing. Cause that's like a real controversial conversation to have. Like, we always talk about it in strength coach communities, right? How strong does someone need to be an athlete, right? How strong does your bench press need to be a football player, right? There's like different great conversations we had around that. But we can all agree it doesn't need to be probably 800 pounds, right? So if you're like general population, like how strong does your deadlift need to be, right? And I ask that rhetorically. I create a space for whatever answer you want to say. But, if you're just, if you don't give a shit at all, you just don't want to die young, and you just want to move enough and age well and be able to get up and off the ground, play with your kids, and you don't even give a shit about playing sports, which is like, I don't have a problem with. A lot of people are like, oh, like I want to get active. Like some people, they don't give a shit. They don't want to be active. Like they just want to train enough so they don't die. Right. And they want to like move enough. Right. Because there is like, because listen, the thing, if you can't get up and off the ground, like that's a real quality of life issue. right? The power stuff we know, power declines precipitously as you age much faster in strength. Populations need power training. You look at single leg stability, right? The number one cause of death at the age of 70 is a slip or fall, right? You've got to have single leg stability. Dan John often talks about there's studies to correlate how many limbs you can get it up off the ground with how long you're gonna fucking live, right? So you know me, man. I'm like an old time like Christian revival preacher guy, right? I'm like, everyone is perfect. Like, I want my fucking hookers, my fucking meth heads. I want my fucking power lifters, my fucking Zumba fucking people, and you know, like, you're all welcome at 10. I love you all. Like, you're all fucking perfect, and you know, and obviously we all disagree with each other. Like, every single person on this call disagrees with each other. Right. That's why I'm like, I feel weird about everyone having those conversations. It's like, yeah, every person thinks whatever their training program is the best, or they wouldn't be doing it. It'd be really weird. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's sort of like, you know, why, like, I personally have a pretty like broad and inclusive attitude when it comes to, you know, wanting to really learn and serve like the broadest fitness industry, because there's a lot of people that need movement, man. And I think we all know that, right? It's like, we need, you know, your brain is designed to move. If you're not moving, like, you're missing out on part of that human experience. And that's what I'm about, right? Because like, none of us are here long for this world, right? And I want people, like, you got to have that to live that full life. So, but I could be wrong about fucking everything. So I got a dinosaur in my hand. Dinosaur.
And also, I mean, one other thing, you know, as far as like the strength, but also people want to look good. You know, I mean, especially in New York City, they're all about.
Oh yeah.
It's really about aesthetics, and we've done so much at TS to try to get people to get out of that, like,
yeah,
you know, out of that kind of like mindset, and more, the strength and the function more. So
for sure, man. And it's like, you know, and even that, like, part of me is like, you know what, like, that's what the only thing I train for. Like, you know, I have people, I'm like, I get it. You want to get like into a threesome on Fire Island. Like, you know, you haven't been get two guys to have sex with you once, and like, okay. You know, for me, and I think I'm sure we'd all agree with this. I think that the only thing that becomes a little bit of like I don't know what to do is, you know, if they're trying to fix something that's broken, now we have a problem, because there's nothing broken and I can't fix you and it's not going to work, right? If it's coming from a body positive place of self-love, this sort of was the Socrates quote, like, you know, no man should see him, like, miss the chance to see how strong and beautiful his bodies can be. Like, I'm all about creating body beauty. I have no problem with that stuff. I just know that the challenge is, you know, and you know, particularly as we know, a lot of times with like female populations, you're rarely going to see that coming from a body positive place. So that's something that like is like I think about a lot, because like I'm open to people training for hotness, and I don't want to like psychoanalyze them, but I would never want to do any harm. Do you know what I mean? I would never want to like enable not good behavior. So I don't know. I got to keep thinking about it. I don't know, guys. I don't know, friends. I just want to be a good person.
That was awesome, man. So thanks so much for your time. It's a really good place to end. We actually ran like 15 minutes over. So thanks.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Let's end this as awkwardly as we can. And everybody there at the screen and say nothing.
I'm going to unmute everybody.
Yeah. All right. Everybody have a great night. Mark, thank you so much, man.
Bye, guys. This is Squirrel. Squirrel's in charge of membership now. We just hired her. She's great. Bye, guys. See you.
Good night. Thank you. Let's let this roll. Let's see how long.
Okay, yeah. We're just not going to leave. Go sit here.
Oh, there's a crotch.
That was, that's a peanut. I thought we'd see some testicle before all was said and done.
It's not over.
It's not over. People are hanging around.
Oh no, it's gonna leave.
Mike Conley's, it's his dog.
He's getting his testicle out, so the camera's just on the dog for a minute.
Oh man,
I'm not going to be the last one to leave.
Somebody's got to be. Somebody's got to be the last one to leave.
I actually am gonna go, but I do love you guys, and I think you should
all
keep.
Thank you so much. Thank you. We really appreciate it.
Namaste.
Have a good night, dude. Thank you.
Have a good night. Thanks.